Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in Japan's Fukuoka prefecture say that they are investigating a bizarre situation this week after what started out as a routine trespassing call took quite the unusual turn. The whole thing began at around 1 p.m. on November 25th when police in the city of Dazaifu received a call from a local woman. The woman stated that she and her husband had seen a strange man sneaking around inside the walled garden of their property. When the man realized he'd been spotted, he tried to run. However, the husband had managed to catch him. When officers arrived at the scene, they spoke to the still detained man, later identified as 37-year-old Yuta Sugawara. That's when things got truly weird. Sugawara reportedly admitted to what had happened right away, telling police that the whole thing was incredibly thrilling for him. He said that the nervous excitement of wondering whether he'd be caught helped to relieve his stress. At this point, you might be thinking to yourself, damn, this guy really needs a hobby. And, well, that's what's so peculiar about this whole situation. You see, Sugawara claimed that sneaking onto private properties was his hobby, telling police, quote, "My hobby is trespassing. It's exciting and fun wondering if I'll be spotted." He went on to claim that he had done this over 1,000 times. Sugawara was arrested on suspicion of trespassing, though it's unclear if he has been formally charged. Despite the 37-year-old's claims that he never actually went into people's houses, police say that they aren't taking him at his word and are currently investigating whether he has been involved in any other crimes. Representatives from England's London Metropolitan Police say that they are investigating an unsettling case this week after a family were the victims of a terrifying shooting attack, one that left two of them with serious injuries. The incident began at around 5:30 p.m. on November 24th when police were called to the intersection of Ladbroke Grove and Southern Row, located in the city's North Kensington area. Witnesses said that they had heard several loud pops that they initially thought were fireworks. That was, until they heard a woman screaming, quote, my baby's been shot." When officers arrived, they found two people, a 34-year-old man and an 8-year-old girl, who were suffering from bullet wounds. They were rushed to a hospital where they both underwent surgery. It was later learned that the victims are related and that the pair are a father and daughter. While both are expected to survive, it's been revealed that the 34-year-old man's injuries are potentially life-changing. As horrible as this is, it appears that the situation could have been far worse. The victims were reportedly with two other family members inside of a car at the time of the shooting. None of them have been identified by name at this point, though the person who was heard screaming by witnesses is said to be the 8-year-old victim's 32-year-old mother. The final person in the car was just 2 years old. According to at least one person who directly witnessed what happened, the family members were sitting in the car when they were approached by their attacker. The man then shot multiple times directly into the vehicle at close range. The day after the disturbing incident, police announced that a 22-year-old man had been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Neither the man's identity nor his alleged motive have been revealed at the time of this recording, and it's said that the suspect has since been released on bail. Currently, authorities are still trying to piece together exactly what happened and why, and are asking for the public's help. Anyone with information about the case is being asked to contact the Metropolitan Police or to reach out anonymously through Crime Stoppers. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might remember that near the end of last month, we brought you an eerie story out of Hong Kong, China. It was here that police were investigating the suspicious death of a young female domestic worker who police alleged had been having an affair with a married British businessman. The whole thing started on the morning of October 28th, when the body of the 25-year-old woman was found at the bottom of a waterfall in Hong Kong's Po Fu Lam neighborhood. The woman had suffered severe injuries to her head, and it was determined that she had died from drowning. Things quickly became more complicated when it was discovered that the 25-year-old domestic worker, who was originally from Indonesia, was involved in a secret relationship with a local businessman, a 34-year-old originally from the UK. Not only that, but the pair had been seen together at the same waterfall the night before the woman's body was found. If you'll recall, the 34-year-old man was seen leaving the area alone and in a hurry about half an hour after arriving at the waterfall that night. He never attempted to contact police, and shortly afterwards, he and his wife traveled to the Chinese mainland. They were both later arrested in connection with the case. At the time of our last report, not much additional information about the crime had been released. The only other details we had were from police, who alleged that the situation was not an accident. Specifically, they pointed to the injuries to the 25-year-old's head, which they claimed were consistent with her being hit with a hard object. Well, over the last couple of weeks, new information has been released, so we decided now is a good time for an update. For starters, we now know both the names of the alleged victim and the suspect. The 25-year-old woman has been identified as Mevi Novidasari, while the 34-year-old businessman has been identified as Jamie Chapman. We also know more details about the circumstances leading up to the incident. Police say that they are looking into whether Chapman murdered Mevi while trying to break off their secret affair. Authorities had also considered the possibility that Mevi might have taken her own life, though it appears that there are reasons to doubt this. One is that Mevi was due to fly back to her home on the island of Java just a day after her death. She was supposed to go there to visit family and to renew her visa so that she could continue to work in Hong Kong. The 25-year-old's family members say that she never would have harmed herself, especially because she has a young daughter back in Indonesia. The family reportedly relied heavily on the money that Mevi sent back to them every month, and say that they were devastated when they found out what happened. Apparently, the news was only broken to them after they were contacted by her employment agency, who asked if she had taken a flight home early. When they looked into it, they discovered that she had never boarded a flight at all, and that she had been found dead. Since our initial report, Jamie Chapman's wife, who was arrested alongside him for aiding an offender, has been released. However, he remains in custody on suspicion of murder. He is due to appear in court again in January of 2025. Authorities in the Argentine capital of Buenos Aires say that a 40-year-old man is in custody and facing charges this week following a brutal attack on his former partner, a crime that was almost completely captured on surveillance video. The whole thing began at around 8:45 p.m. on November 18th, when the victim, a 45-year-old woman who has not been identified by name, was at work at a pizza restaurant in the city's Núñez neighborhood. The woman was in the middle of her shift and was taking care of some tasks in the business's kitchen when suddenly she was approached by the suspect, 40-year-old Sergio Raul Sarria. According to reports, Sarria wanted to talk to the victim, however, she wasn't interested in having any kind of conversation. In surveillance video, the pair can be seen exchanging a few words before out of nowhere, Sarria jumps the counter and corners the woman in the kitchen. He grabs a knife, throws the female victim to the ground, and then unleashes an absolutely horrific attack. As you can see, Sarria stabbed the woman over and over again while she struggled to defend herself. The 45-year-old's terrified colleagues attempted to run to her aid, however, they were forced to stay back as Sarria threatened to turn the knife on them as well. It's only after they began throwing trays, cutlery, and other items that the female victim was able to find a window to get up and run. After the woman escaped and police were called, Sarria reportedly began to turn his weapon on himself. However, thankfully, officers arrived and were able to put a stop to everything before anyone else was seriously hurt. Miraculously, though the 45-year-old woman sustained at least 28 stab wounds all over her body, she's expected to survive. Sarria was also treated for non-life-threatening injuries before being placed under arrest. While no motive is currently known behind the disturbing incident, it's believed that the crime was related to Sarria and the victim's former relationship. According to witnesses, Sarria was yelling about how their 19-year-old daughter didn't love him before carrying out the attack. According to local news sources, Sarria has a YouTube channel with over 15,000 followers where he makes reaction videos as well as other content with this same daughter that he was reportedly yelling about. The 40-year-old is a self-described actor, stand-up comedian, and content creator. At the time of this recording, Sarria is facing charges of attempted femicide since police allege that there was a gender-based component to the crime. He remains in custody. Representatives from the UK's HM Revenue and Customs Department say that a 56-year-old fraudster has officially been sentenced to prison time this week after his 3 years on the run recently came to a ridiculous end when he was caught because he was too lazy to pick up a fast food order. The case began back in 2021 when the man in question, 56-year-old Robert Kemp, was brought up on charges related to a tax fraud scheme he had been running with his son Marcus. According to reports, the father and son duo claimed to run a company that supplied windows for new homes. Between May and November of 2015, it said that the pair submitted a litany of fraudulent invoices claiming reimbursements through the value-added tax system. By doing this, Kemp and his son were apparently able to scam over £251,000, or $317,000 US. Both men admitted to what they had done back in 2021. However, only Marcus decided to face the music, so to speak. He was sentenced to 2 years and 2 months in prison, while Kemp stopped attending court hearings and went on the run. For nearly the next 3 years, police reportedly looked for Kemp to no avail. That was, until his own laziness got him caught. Sometime earlier this year, authorities learned that the 56-year-old was hiding out in the Welsh town of Rhyl after he apparently ordered a $23 doner kebab to be delivered to his one-bedroom apartment. This is even more ridiculous when you know that the takeout place he ordered from was less than half a mile away, meaning he likely could have easily gone and gotten his food in person without blowing his cover. This week, authorities announced that Kemp had finally been jailed for 2 years and 2 months on the tax fraud offenses. In addition to his original sentence, he must also serve 2 months for going on the run and 12 months for an unrelated affray charge. Speaking about the incident, a spokesperson for the Revenue and Customs Department said, quote, "This case shows that we don't forget and we don't give up. We can and do use a range of tools to track down fugitives and bring them back before the courts to face justice. Tax fraud is not a victimless crime. The tax we all pay helps to fund the public services we rely on." Officials in South Korea say that a 26-year-old man has officially been sentenced this week after he was convicted in connection with a bizarre scheme designed to help him avoid his mandatory military service. For those unaware, South Korea has laws that require every able-bodied man over the age of 18 to serve in the military. Men are supposed to serve for at least 18 months, and once they are of legal age, are required to report for physical assessments. When the 26-year-old in question received his initial exam in October of 2017, he was apparently in perfect health, scoring in the second highest tier of the country's grading system. However, according to reports, he did not want to serve in a combat role, so he quite literally cooked up a scheme with one of his friends. Essentially, when he knew he was going to be called in for his final examination, he doubled his daily intake of food and started drinking a ton more water. The plan worked. Well, at least at first. By the time the 26-year-old was called in to be assessed last year, he weighed 225 pounds. You might not think that sounds like much, but keep in mind this guy is 5'6". It was determined he had a body mass index of nearly 36%, making him, quote, heavily obese, and meaning he only qualified to work in a non-combat office role at a government agency which would allow him to commute from home. Unfortunately for the suspect, authorities figured out that he had done all of this deliberately, and he was arrested, along with the friend who had helped to fatten him up. Eventually, both of them admitted to the scheme, though the friend argued that he never thought the 26-year-old would actually go through with the plan. Both men were facing up to 3 years in prison for violating the Military Service Act, though it appears that because they confessed and apologized, officials decided to give them lighter punishments. The 26-year-old was sentenced to 1 year in prison, while the friend was sentenced to 6 months. However, both sentences were suspended for 2 years. The 26-year-old must also still complete his military service. The search for a missing Australian teenager came to a tragic end last week after her remains were found under incredibly disturbing circumstances, and police announced that 2 men had now been arrested in connection with the case. According to reports, 19-year-old Isla Bell was last seen on the evening of October 4th when she left her family home in the Melbourne suburb of Brunswick. The circumstances of why she left and where she was intending to go are not clear. However, it's believed that by the next day, she had met the man that is now accused of her murder. Shortly after midnight on October 7th, Isla messaged a friend over Snapchat saying that she had some exciting news. She explained that she had, quote, found the best Russian sugar daddy. She claimed this man had saved her from sex traffickers and that he had been lavishing her with expensive gifts. The friend started asking questions. However, right during the middle of the conversation, Isla abruptly stopped responding. After that, no one was ever able to reach her again. Police now allege that this so-called sugar daddy, 53-year-old Murat Ganiv, killed Isla right around the same time as this text exchange with her friend. Investigators say that they know this thanks to nightmarish video footage that shows the 19-year-old being brutally beaten to death. That footage was reportedly recovered from surveillance cameras at Ganiv's apartment complex in the suburb of St. Kilda East. While the video has not been made public, it apparently captured a view through the 53-year-old's kitchen window. In it, Isla's head can allegedly be seen whipping around as she is repeatedly hit by Ganiv. Court documents state, quote, "She falls to the ground and Ganiv can be seen striking her on the ground of the kitchen. What appears to be Isla's head can be seen rising up before being pushed back down by Ganiv's arm." The video reportedly shows Isla alive between 12:43 a.m. and 2 a.m., at which point she vanishes from view altogether. Isla was reported missing by her worried family, at which point police launched an investigation. According to authorities, that investigation revealed how, in the days and weeks following Isla's murder, Ganiv took numerous steps to try and cover up the crime. It's alleged that the 53-year-old was helped by an accomplice, his friend, 57-year-old Ayal Yaf. The pair are accused of stuffing Isla's body into a fridge and meticulously cleaning Ganiv's apartment before attempting to dispose of evidence. Police say that the fridge containing Isla's body was moved several times to addresses all over the surrounding area. It was allegedly taken to locations in at least 5 different Melbourne suburbs before finally ending up at a waste management facility. Somewhere along the way, the fridge was apparently opened and separated from the body by a worker who didn't realize what they had found. Isla's remains weren't successfully located until November 19th. When arrested and questioned, Ganiv denied any involvement in the crime and claimed that he had only provided Isla with a place to stay for 3 days before dropping her off somewhere else. Yaf, meanwhile, admitted to helping to cover up what had happened, but claimed he didn't know anything about how Isla had died. Understandably, the awful revelation about what had happened to Isla devastated her family, who were still trying to deal with their grief and wrap their heads around the heartbreaking situation. They received some more crushing news this week when it was announced that Ayal Yaf had been released on bail. This is despite the fact that at the time of his arrest he was reportedly in possession of a plane ticket to Bulgaria, which police have argued he intended to use to flee the country. At the time of this recording, Ganiv has been charged with murder, while Yaf has been charged with assisting an offender. The situation is still developing. Multiple countries have issued urgent warnings to would-be vacationers this week after 6 people died within a matter of days of each other in the same Southeast Asian party town. Deaths which are suspected to have been the result of methanol poisoning. The whole thing started earlier this month when reports of several serious hospitalizations and deaths began being reported out of the country of Laos. The incidents all happened in the town of Vieng and were quickly linked to a specific location, the Nana Backpackers Hostel, which is popular with European and American tourists. All of the reports began on or around November 13th. They started with news of the hospitalizations of 2 19-year-old Australian women, Holly Bowles and Bianca Jones. At first, it wasn't exactly clear what had happened. By this point, the 2 friends had left Laos for neighboring Thailand and didn't get sick until after they had arrived. However, that began to change when more alarming reports began coming from the Nana Backpackers Hostel where they had previously been staying. 2 Danish women, 20-year-old Anne-Sophie Koyman and 21-year-old Freya Sorensen, were found unconscious in their rooms. Not long after, a 57-year-old American man named James Lewis Hudson was found dead. After Hudson was discovered, authorities began piecing together a theory. There were no obvious injuries to Hudson's body, but he was surrounded by empty drink glasses. That's when they began to suspect that all of the sudden illnesses were the result of poisoning, specifically poisoning from methanol. If you're unfamiliar with what methanol is, it's a kind of alcohol. However, it's different from the ethanol that we drink recreationally. While all alcohol is technically bad for us, our bodies can break ethanol down and process it safely in the quantities that it's normally consumed. That's not the case with methanol. When a person ingests methanol, it's first broken down into formaldehyde and then formic acid. Our bodies cannot clear large amounts of this formic acid, and it causes our cells to be depleted of oxygen, leading to serious injury and/or death. As little as 10 milliliters, or about 2 teaspoons, can cause permanent blindness, and as little as 60 milliliters, or about a quarter cup, can kill you. Sadly, it's believed that's exactly what happened in this case. Within days, Holly, Bianca, Anne-Sophie, and Freya had also died, and soon a sixth person, 28-year-old British lawyer Simone White, was confirmed to be another victim. All of them had either stayed at the Nana Backpackers hostel or had been vacationing in the town of Vieng. Now you might be asking yourself, how did these poisonings happen? Well, that's currently still being investigated, though police believe it's likely the deadly methanol was mixed into the alcoholic drinks that the victims were consuming. While Vieng has become a major party and adventure vacation destination over the last decade or so, health and safety regulations are not one of the things the area is known for. Instead, young tourists are generally attracted by the cheap accommodations and even cheaper cost of having a good time. Drugs are sold out in the open, and alcohol is given away freely by a lot of local shops in order to attract business. The town is specifically known for its so-called bucket drinks, which are exactly what they sound like. Essentially, big buckets filled with booze and mixers that are meant to be enjoyed by groups of friends with large novelty straws. Hostels and bars giving out free shots is also a regular occurrence. The Nana Backpackers hostel is apparently no exception, and had reportedly been handing out vodka shots to guests there. In terms of how the methanol actually got into the alcoholic drinks, there are generally two main ways this happens. The first is through sloppy home brewing and distilling. Methanol is a natural byproduct of fermentation for many ingredients, but it's supposed to be removed during distillation. However, if the person making the alcohol is inexperienced or not careful, it can contaminate the final product. The second way this can happen is from people deliberately adding methanol into existing alcoholic beverages. Methanol is often used as an industrial solvent, and in many places it's far cheaper than ethanol, tempting some unscrupulous people to use it as a method of stretching out alcoholic drinks. In this case, it's still unclear exactly what happened, though there was at least one reason to believe it could be that second situation. As many news sources have pointed out, 5 of the 6 victims were women, and this has led to speculation that they could have been specifically targeted. At the time of this recording, an investigation is underway, and police say that at least 8 staff members of the Nana Backpackers hostel have now been arrested. However, they have denied any wrongdoing, and it's unclear where the case will go from here. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.